Wade, your stream is live now, and I have make you the host back again. And now you can also make me your co-host.
Done. All right, thanks.
Hello, Wade.
Hi, Wade.
If you are there.
I'm here now. Okay.
Hey.
Hey,
Hi,
everybody.
Wade.
How you doing, Wade?
Great. How's everyone?
Good.
Oh, let's see. A lot of the regulars are here. Hey, Carl, Josie. See, Joe's here. Heard your voice, Joe.
Yep, I'm here.
Adantha, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Great.
I
Thanks
see you
for
again.
joining. Always, yes. Thank you for coming back. Leslie, you there? She'll be coming in. I see Helen's come in. Helen, you there?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, Helen. Welcome.
Good morning.
Okay, Leslie. Let's see. Oh, Joanne, hi. Welcome back. And Pat, hey, Pat. Welcome. Hi, Mina. Good to have you back as well. Let's see who else is here. Kathy, can you hear me? And Eileen.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming, Eileen. Let's see, Alma's coming in. Hi, Alma. And
I'm just getting a paper.
Hi, Wade.
hey, Alma. Good to see you again. And Carolyn, I see you're here. Good to see you again.
Wade.
Hey, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. Got a great group already here. I'm gonna move this.
Did your dog tell you you should do this class?
No, she tells me a lot of things to do, but most of them are more self-focused.
Okay.
She's in control of things around here.
Oh yes, there was a stamp that or saying that said, if you have a pet at home, do not think you are the boss.
Absolutely, yes. So we don't even pretend. In fact, I've got my door cracked now. She's in the other room, but she'll probably want to come in here before the class is over. So I have to leave my door cracked so she can come in and out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start getting things set up so we can get going here in a minute or so. We got a few more people that will maybe joining us, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Which you should now be seeing. And well, get your pictures up over here so I can see you. Great. Everybody over there, and the chat is now open as well. So I think I've heard from everybody. So, but if you do have any microphone problems, or if you just need to get to us via the chat, it is now open. And Todd from our TA group is here to help me manage the class. So he'll be managing the chat. So if you have any technical issues or other questions, you can always reach Todd in the chat. Thanks for joining us, Todd. Appreciate your help. All right, good. And I just need to do one more thing here. So I can mute if we need to. So depending on background noise and things that come up, we will probably have to mute several times during the course of the class. So just remember to check. And if you're muted, unmute yourself before you ask a question or make a comment. This is a class where I expect lots of questions and comments. So please do join in, but just go ahead and unmute and join in. You don't need to raise your hand or anything, just unmute and ask away. All right, we are 5 minutes into the hour, so that's usually when we try to get started. So let's get started. This is Managing Your Digital Afterlife. Thanks for joining today. Hope you enjoy the class and find it informative. My name is Wade Yarber, and I'll be the guide for today. Very briefly about my background: born and raised in Mason, Tennessee, a booming town of 500 people just outside of Memphis. I got my doctorate in psychology from West Virginia University and taught psychology off and on, but most of my work career was training and installing healthcare information systems. So I've done a lot of work with adult education, but I love teaching here because I get to teach people like you that are here because you want to be here, not because somebody told you to be here. And that's what we try to do, is to create classes that where you can take classes you're interested in, but with other people. That's why we ask people to turn their cameras on. If you're okay with that, it kind of creates that more comfortable feeling where you can interact with the other people. But if you would rather leave your camera off, that's okay as well. The session is being recorded as always, and you can get a copy of that by sending an email to help@getsetup.io. And let me go ahead and put that in the chat. I think all of you probably have this already, but just in case, there it is in case you need to copy and paste it. We're also live streaming the class today, so I do want to welcome anyone joining us via live stream. Thanks for joining. Hope you enjoy the class as well. But I do want to stress that the only way you can enjoy that participant part of the class where you can ask questions and interact with the other learners is to go to our website and register for a class. So we hope you'll do that as well as joining via live stream. And finally, Get Set Up is not paid to promote any of the products we train on. So this is the first time with this class. It's a little different class than most of them. This is, I would call this more of a consciousness raising class than a how-to class. And it's the first time we've taught it. So we're interested in your comments and feedback during and after the class in terms of how it's going and changes you'd like to see us make about it. What we're going to cover today is what is digital afterlife, in case you don't know. Talk about the different components that make up your digital afterlife, and then what control you have over what happens to your digital afterlife, and in some cases, what control you don't have over what happens to your digital afterlife. So we all have a digital footprint. I mean, almost anything we do online leaves some form of a digital footprint. Things like posts, comments you make on social media are all stored out there somewhere. Stored emails that you've sent and received, if you stored them, they're out there somewhere as your digital footprint. All those documents and photos you've put on in the cloud or stored or sent via emails are out there somewhere. Records from every online account that you have, and the last information I saw says that most people now have over 200 accounts that they log into. So that means you've got around 200 plus or minus accounts that have your digital footprint in them: shopping accounts, Amazon, Walmart, whatever, your bank and financial sites, entertainment, Netflix, Disney Plus, if you're a Disney Plus person like I am, clubs, organizations, you name it, much, much more. I mean, everything is becoming online and digital, which means our digital footprint is getting bigger and bigger. So after we pass on, that digital footprint becomes our digital afterlife. That is still out there somewhere. So the question becomes, what happens to your digital afterlife? What happens to that footprint you've left when you're no longer here? And there's several things that could happen. It could be deleted by the site owner. And that's typically done after some period of inactivity. I mean, they're paying for the disk space to store your digital footprint. And so they don't want to have tons and tons of space taken up by people that aren't using the site. Sometimes you can you officially notify sites of your passing, and they'll delete automatically based on notification. In some cases, it may stay on the internet, and if it's still out there, it could be accessible to anyone. Anything you've tweeted, pretty much everything on Twitter is available to anyone. It's still out there and available to anyone that wants to go and look at it. Lots of times it's only available to the site owner. Your Amazon account, nobody can go and look at what you've ordered on Amazon, but Amazon still has it, and they may leave it out there. Anyone that has your username and password, and this gets interesting, we'll talk about this more, but if someone has your username and password and your account is still out there, then they can get access to it. That can be good and bad. And sometimes only the people you've designated that can have access to it. So lots of different combinations of whether it's deleted, and if it's deleted, under what conditions is it deleted? If it's still there, who can have access to it? Good place to stop and ask questions at this point. Okay, we'll keep digging into it, but as you have questions.
Is this something that needs to be put in the will or a trust or anything?
Yes, and we'll get there.
Okay.
And some of it can, some of it, it isn't. And I'll go ahead and say here, I'll say this multiple times, it's extremely murky in terms of what happens, and it's changing daily, if not hourly, in terms of what's going on out there. Laws are changing, common practices are changing. So it's a difficult thing to talk about or even research because things change so fast, which is part of the reason for this class. Is why I kind of called it a consciousness raising. I've got lots of things to tell you about, for you to think about. I don't have many answers for you in terms of what to do. So let's break that digital afterlife down a little bit more, and let's break it into 4 categories or components. Social media, which is your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Nextdoor, any of those sites where you're posting things out there for other people to read, kind of falls under the social media moniker. Your electronic communication, email especially, but text messages you've sent, other types of things you've sent via WhatsApp or other messaging systems, as well as texting from your phone or texting from your computer. Personal photos, videos, and files, all of those spreadsheets, Word documents, PowerPoint slides that you created and are out there, especially out there on the cloud somewhere. I mean, you also have to be concerned about your digital footprint that's on your devices, but that's a little easier to deal with. But still something to think about, because now we've got so many devices. We've got phones, we've got tablets, we've got multiple laptops, we got desktops, we got stuff everywhere. So you do also have to think about the physical devices where you're storing things, but we're going to primarily be focusing on things that are in the cloud. But all of us now have things in the cloud. Lots of it, you may not even realize that it's in the cloud. And then the last category we're going to call digital assets. And this is another one. I've been doing some research about this, and I don't claim to be an expert on it at all. I've kind of done some initial research. There's not a common definition of digital assets. There's lots of different ways that term is used, so you have to be careful with it. So for today, I'm going to define how I'm going to be using it, but if you go and read an article, that writer may define it differently. So the way we're going to talk about digital assets today are things that are digital, but that have some monetary value. some people include other things as digital assets. But I think for clarity, this is a good way to break it down. So these are
Wade,
things.
somebody asked on the chat if you could increase your volume.
Yes, are people having trouble hearing? I can move my mic a little bit closer. Is that better?
Wade,
Yeah.
you're really loud. I think it's on her end. You're really
Okay.
loud.
Yeah,
All right.
you're loud for me too.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
It was just somebody in the chat. You're
Yeah, I
fine
see
for me
that
as
there.
well.
Yeah. So hopefully that helped a little bit. So all right. So so in terms of digital assets, things that have monetary value. So I mean, these are things you need to be especially concerned about. And the question about the will, these should be definitely covered in the will since they do have monetary value. Bank accounts, brokerage accounts, everybody thinks about probably. PayPal accounts, sometimes we forget about that we got PayPal accounts and our heirs may or may not know we got them and where they are. If you've purchased cryptocurrency, what's the password? It's no good without the password. Where is that password? Digital products even. If you've purchased lots of ebooks or videos or music, can that be passed on? Very murky as well. In most cases, that is a use license you've got when you bought that book from Amazon and put it on your Kindle. You can't give it to someone else. So again, lots of confusion, but at least time to start thinking about it. But that's when I talk about digital assets, we're going to be talking about things that have or could have some type of monetary value to the recipient.
Sorry, Wade, I have a
Yeah.
question if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely.
So when you were talking about all our different kinds of footprints, where do like subscriptions fall, like to newsletters or I don't know, newsletters, newspapers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, good
Any
question.
kind of subscriptions, information, any kinds of information sorts of subscriptions, or any kinds of subscription service subscriptions, or Office, for example, Office 365 subscription, Adobe subscriptions, that kind of thing for services. Where would they
Many
fall?
software applications will send you a letter saying, unless you tell us otherwise, we're going to take the money out of your account for the
Right.
next year's
Exactly. So that would
dues,
empower-
And
Yeah.
is there any effort being made to change that?
That's
So
a great question. And actually, in the articles I've been reading, that one hasn't come up, but it's a great one. It's almost more of a liability than an asset because almost definitely you can't will that to someone else. If I've got a Microsoft 365 subscription, but as I think that was Joe, I don't want it to keep getting paid for year after year.
No, so you need a power of attorney or whoever's taking care of your affairs to make sure that they stop that.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the list and things we should make, but I'm going to add that to the list of things that are subscription, and especially if you've got it on a recurring renewal,
Right.
which
all those
more and more
recurring
people
things.
do that.
Yeah, auto insurance, all that stuff that's recurring, you have to watch out for that.
And if it's especially if it's drafting a bank account, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, great question. And another example of how amorphous this whole concept is. It's stuff
It's
that we didn't have to
overwhelming.
worry about 60 years ago, but it's a very big deal now. Yeah. Thanks. Good idea. And I think we'll come up with lots of other things. I'm going to probably have a list of things before the class is over. Yeah, thanks for that. And please, everyone, make comments as you think of things or have questions, because this is a bit of a group project.
Yeah, like Xfinity, all the communications services, Xfinity, that kind of thing, all that sort of stuff too.
Yeah, Yeah. Yeah. They all somewhat fall under the moniker of accounts. And we'll talk about all your online accounts, because most of those are
Right.
tied to some type of an online account. So,
Right.
your
Utility.
Microsoft account would be tied to your Microsoft 365, and your whatever you're using for telecom would be in there. So that's certainly one of the things that we'll talk about, and that we need to do is to maintain and pass on a list of all the different online accounts
Mhm.
that someone needs to go in and cancel. If it's just a subscription or something you want to get rid of, versus something that has some money in it, your bank account, you want to make sure somebody gets that. And that's why something like PayPal is very easy to forget that you've got a PayPal account, or maybe you've got a savings account out there somewhere, an online bank savings account that you've created, and nobody knows you have that. So I've been starting to go through and think about my stuff as I started researching this class, and it's a little scary how much junk we got out there and how much stuff I've got out there that no one else knows about. Not that I'm hiding it, but
Yeah,
it's not anywhere easily conveyed.
it's pretty overwhelming. I started making lists too, and it's, could go on for pages.
It's ever changing. I do have a couple of ideas on that one as we go along, but I don't think anyone has their arms around this one, and it's going to be something where there's going to be a lot of movement in the next few years, I think, because more and more people are realizing it, and of course businesses are realizing it and are seeing it as a business opportunity. So companies are starting to pop up that will manage your digital afterlife for you and those types of things. So yeah, it's an area to definitely be aware of and start following. Okay, so some considerations, and we kind of talked about this a little bit already, but one of the considerations is what do you want to happen with your digital afterlife? Especially that the not the digital assets, but your social media accounts and those sorts of things. And there was a survey done a couple of years ago, and 1 in 4 people said they wanted everything wiped off when they died. They'd like just to have their whole footprint taken off the internet, which is not too surprising. I'm surprised. It's actually, I would have guessed it was closer to 50%, but in this survey, at least a quarter of the people wanted to be totally wiped off. Other people want probably portions kept, portions deleted. Today, there is no way to do that. There's no thing you can do that just automatically wipes your footprint off. Most people want some portions to remain and some portions to go away, which makes it even more complicated because you have to define that. But what do your friends and family want to happen with your digital afterlife? And they may be in conflict with you. Maybe your family wants your Facebook page to stay out there because then they want to see it, or they want your emails, or they want different parts. So, your wishes may differ from your family and friends. Some of your family may want to keep parts of it for sentimental reasons, but some of them say it makes me too sad. I want it to go away. So your family is probably not going to be in agreement in terms of what happens to it. So even that part gets complicated in terms of who decides what happens to it. And the general advice there is fairly logical. To make it simpler for your heirs, you decide instead of having them fighting over it after you're gone. So to avoid the arguments, the more direction you provide in terms of what you want to happen with your digital afterlife, it probably does make it simpler for those that you leave behind. And we'll keep digging into this a little bit more. Who owns your digital afterlife? So this is starting to get into maybe I know what I want to happen with it, but can I make that happen? Do I have control over my digital afterlife? And this is, again, where it gets very murky over who has legal ownership to the different components of your digital afterlife. And it varies based on the laws of your state. So it varies state to state in terms of the rules and regulations. The type of an account involved. If it's a social media account, there may be one set of rules. If it's a bank account, there's different rules. All of your online accounts have some terms of services agreement, which we all automatically approve when we sign up for something and never read. At least I never read them. I think most people don't. They just click agree because you don't have a choice. You either agree to Facebook's terms of services or you don't get a Facebook account. But those terms of services can differ. But ultimately, the terms of services, at least as things stand today in most states, are the ruling decision. So if Facebook says these are our terms of service, the fact that you agreed to those when you got your Facebook account, they determine what happens to your afterlife on Facebook, which means technically you don't own your social media profile. Facebook owns it. And same thing typically with things like your music and your books, your iTunes library and your Kindle library. You can't pass those on. Typically, the terms of use say that you have a right to use. You don't have an ownership. So one of the considerations, for your accounts, what do you have per the terms of service of that account? Do you have a right to use it, or do you have ownership of it? If you don't have ownership of it, then you don't have any legal right. Now, more and more, these organizations are realizing that they have some obligations around that, and they're giving their members options about what you want to have happen to. And I know a lot of people don't like Facebook. There's lots of things I don't like about Facebook, but Facebook is probably leading in this area in terms of providing several options around what happens to your account when you pass on. Some don't give you any options. They basically delete it, and you have no rights to do anything and keep it from being deleted. Questions and comments about this one? This one is murky and a little unsettling. All right, we'll keep going through this, and it's a lot to absorb and get your arms around. So let's talk a little bit about what you can do, given some of those limitations and restrictions we've talked about so far. And we'll kind of break it down into the categories again. So social media. Some social media sites are starting to allow what's called memorialization of your account. And basically what that allows is to let you keep some information, but you can also get rid of other parts of it. So as part of the memorialization process, you have some say over what stays, what doesn't stay, and what happens to it. And the process will vary site to site, but the basic concept is that you want something to stay out there. You don't want to just be totally gone from Facebook. You want people to still be able to see that you existed and what you did and what you posted. Or they will give you the option to deactivate / delete your entire account if that's what you'd rather do. So today, Facebook gives you both of those options. You can memorialize your account, or you can just have it deleted completely. That's based on notification that you've passed, and they have requirements as to what qualifies for that. Typically, they need a death certificate or some other evidence. You can't just call up and say so-and-so has passed away. You have to provide some sort of documentation that that person has passed away. And then if they have decided what they want to do, then those actions are taken. Others just automatically delete after a fixed period of time. And probably this is where most of them are today. So the amount of time varies, but again, if you haven't logged in for a year, 2 years, whatever period of time, they're going to assume that you either have passed or that you're no longer interested in the contents of that account, and they'll just delete it automatically. In terms of the memorialization, just to give you a little bit more idea how that might work, and again, it differs site to site and it changes over time, but this is fairly common. Typically, you have to declare a legacy contact. That is the administrator of your account. They decide, within the boundaries that you've set, what happens. And typically they'll designate your account somehow that you have passed. It'll have the word remembering or an in remembrance of or something like that beside your name. So if someone happens to go to your account, they'll see that you've passed. And if they don't know, which they may not. I saw something recently that talked about how many millions of accounts currently on Facebook are for people that have passed. And that number is obviously growing rapidly. People can share memories on the memorialized account, so people can still post to your account if they want to say things, hopefully nice things about you. Content the person shared, so things that you have shared, photos and posts and things can be left on the account and visible to the audience that it was originally shared with. So again, it leaves your legacy out there. It leaves your footprint out there if you want that to remain. Typically, that legacy contact can't actually log into your account and act as if it was their account. They can't go in and delete things and add things and move things around. They're basically controlling the memorialization of the account, but the account is locked and only Facebook can access that account beyond the limited roles that the legacy contact has. The legacy contact can typically do things like change the picture, those sorts of things, but fairly limited access to make any changes to your account.
Even if they have your password?
Well, yeah, that gets into a very interesting point, which most accounts, and this gets into those terms of use agreements, in most cases, it is in violation of their terms of agreement, and in that case, illegal for anyone other than the person that owns the account to log in with that account. So technically, if I log into my wife's Facebook account, even though she gave me her username and password, she is in violation of her terms of agreement. So they do not sanction that, obviously. I don't think anyone's going to be arrested and taken off to court. And in fact, we'll talk about that's one of the best ways probably to control what happens to your legacy is to make sure that the right people have access to your accounts so they can go in there and do what you want them to do with it. And as long as you do it before you hit that time period where the owner of the account automatically wipes it out, which is usually, I think, years, not months. Obviously, people do it all the time, but technically in most cases, that's violation. And definitely with Facebook, I do know it is a violation of their terms of agreement to allow anyone to log into your account other than you. I didn't know that till I started researching this myself. But yeah, you could certainly do that. You could give somebody your username and password, and then they could just leave it up as an account. If they wanted to put, something on your page saying in memory of, they could do that themselves without any help from Facebook.
Question.
Uh-huh.
So if I give my password and log on to somebody, I am in violation of the contract or agreement.
Yes. Yes.
What about the person that I give to use it? Are they in violation for it?
Yes, I would say they are, because
Both ends, both parties.
Yeah. Now, whether there's any culpability in terms of that the person could be prosecuted or anything like that, I mean, for a social media site, I don't think it is, but it is a violation of the terms of service.
What if someone has power of attorney with that to deal with everything?
Or executor,
Yeah, and that's where it gets into.
So they can close your accounts. They can't close them unless they can log into them.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it gets into, it may vary state to state. And those are some of the things that are starting to be looked at and changed. And hopefully there'll be some national decisions made, so it's not different state to state. But right now, I think in most cases, because it really comes down to the terms of agreement for that. So Twitter might allow the executor to access the account, and Facebook may say no, because at this point, it is whatever's in the terms of agreement you signed with that account. It's not like there's a state law or a federal law that says the executor has access to any of your accounts. Mm-hmm. I'm hoping, or we're moving towards some more standardization along those lines, but right now it's very murky. Again, I don't think it's something we have to be too concerned about, but it's, it's technically is a violation of terms of use, just, so everybody knows that.
Facebook may have that just to protect themselves from lawsuits.
It could be, yeah.
One thing that you could do if you're concerned about your Facebook account is you can set up a joint Facebook account with the spouse and give them access. Like you would with a page or with a group, and you'd have a group of two, and that way you could, with the other person being a spouse or what have you, and that way unless both of you go at one time, you could deal with it in that way. Each of you could have a dual account.
Yeah, I didn't know you can do that, but if you can, that's a good account.
Well, think about a Facebook group account or a Facebook page account. You can have multiple editors for it.
Yep. You definitely can do it with a page.
So you just set it up like a page account or set it up like a group account where you can have multiple individuals that are allowed to add and subtract things from the item. I mean, that would be a solution if you're concerned about that, but you have to do that on an individual basis, as opposed to making it a part of a blanket type of take care of everything at once.
Yeah, and it will probably only work with a small segment of those social media sites, because I don't think you can do that with Twitter or some of the other ones.
Well, they have groups too.
Yeah, could be. Okay, good. Yeah, great idea. And there may be more things like that coming up. I think in general practice, I mean, like somebody mentioned, if someone has to be able to go into your bank account after you pass away to close out your account. So I think that if it's a spouse or the executor of the will, no one's going to complain, even if it is maybe technically a violation of the terms of service. But if it's part of the will and it's the executor and they are going in to close out your account and consistent with your wishes, I don't see anything wrong with that. But I'm not an attorney by any stretch.
Otherwise, you get into a lot of catch-22 situations where you have to get into an account in order to deal with it, and then by admitting that the person's dead, you're already, you're already in violation.
Yeah, no. Of course, as Joe was saying, with bank accounts, things like that, then you can have joint ownership.
That's different. Well,
financial accounts, you can do
bank
that.
Accounts are different. You can do other dispositions, but
these non-digital asset accounts is where it gets really murky. Yeah. Yeah, great discussion, and kind of accentuates the point that this is a big problem that is really just starting to be focused on by people in the legal profession and other areas to try and put some order to it.
Make a lot of lawyers happy.
It's going to, because that's where a lot of the help is coming. There's already people that specialize in digital assets and digital estate planning and those sorts of things. There's professions and organizations focused on that popping up now. Talk about a few other accounts. This is the email accounts. And so at some point after your death, timing depending on the company, your account is typically deleted, which is probably what you want to happen there. So again, it comes down to your wishes. If there's certain things in your email that you want certain people to have access to, you need to make that known so that can be done between the time that you pass and the account is deleted by Google or Yahoo or whoever has your account. So you could have instructions for the executor to send emails, print emails, delete certain emails if you want to make sure nobody gets a hold of these emails, but you want to make sure that your son gets these emails that have something to do with something he was involved with, whatever. In a lot of cases, you can download them digitally as well to a file. A lot of this stuff that's in the cloud, part of the answer is to get it out of the cloud onto a CD or someplace where it's not, which kind of leads us to the next topic, which is that stuff out there on the cloud, photos, music, or your files. Again, so typically, the executor is going to have access to those. and you just have to make sure that they know what you want done with them. What's to be deleted, what's to be given to any of your heirs. And again, eventually the account's going to be disabled and no one will be able to access the files once it's disabled. So there is that time, but it's typically plenty of time. You're not talking weeks and months. And if you want to make sure that the files get to your loved ones, leave instructions how to access these accounts to your executor. So it kind of gets back into the usernames and passwords and that the accounts even exist. If everything is in one cloud service, that makes life easier. If you're a person like me that's all over the place, I've got iCloud, OneDrive, Lockbox, multiple cloud services. They're going to have a hell of a mess when I'm gone. Financial accounts, utilities. Again, make sure your executor has instructions how to access those, because during probate, they're obviously going to need to pay off your accounts and they're going to need access to your bank accounts to pay off your accounts. And so again, it's making your wishes known and making sure they have the information they need.
Wade,
Uh-huh.
can I, when we talk about utilities, when my dad passed away about 10, 11 years ago, my sister was helping my mom clear out the house and stuff, and they needed to call the phone company to make a little adjustment. And since my dad's name was the only one on the account, they wouldn't let her touch it. Mm-hmm. She's 90 years old and he was over 90 when he passed. So, what they ended up having to do was just close the account out. And my sister just texted us and says, from now on, if you want to talk to mom, you have to call on a cell phone, But what I've been doing through the years since that is every account we have, I check it, and if it's just in my husband's name or just my name, I call up customer service and we make it an either or to take care of that.
That's a great tip, because and what I've been reading about happens more often than not is exactly what you said, is you can call up and say, my wife died and this is her account, but I don't know what her password is. Can you give me access to that account? And they're going to say no. Our terms of service say that only the owner of the account can have access to the account. So no, I will not give you their password. So that's, if you've got the password, they're probably not going to object, but they're not going to give it to you. So either making sure they've got that username and password, or putting both names on the accounts. Or
it was in the old days, it was just a landline. We're just talking about the paper statement, but they still wouldn't, they were firm on that.
Oh yeah. So it can be tricky. Let's see. I got a couple of them. Okay, so a few tips here in terms of how to prepare things to sort of wrap things up here and summarize some things we've already talked about. But easier said than done, but review your online presence and catalog all your online accounts, social media accounts, forums, shopping sites, pretty much anything you can log into. And as part of that, make a list of your usernames and passwords. And this is where a password manager software application could be a great aid, because that not only logs everything you're logging into, but it has the username and password. I teach a class on password managers, and one thing I say to always do is that put your username and password to your password manager on a 3x5 index card and put it in the bank vault, put it in the safe in your house, put it someplace where people can get to it. Yeah, I'm just looking at the chat, and there's a question from Leslie about whether there are resources to help gather information to give to your executor. And yeah, that's kind of what we're getting into now, Leslie. And this is probably, I think, the best way to do it. Now, you don't have to use a password manager. If you don't want to use a password manager, you could do it on an Excel spreadsheet, and you can even password protect the Excel spreadsheet. It's not quite as secure as using a password manager, but it's less technical. So if you wanted to just start making a list of every account you've got and your username and password on an Excel spreadsheet or somewhere else, I would not put it on paper and pencil, but find a place to log that where it is reasonably secure. I would certainly want something that's password protected at least. Okay. Review the terms and conditions of each online account to determine what happens to the account if no action is taken. Are they going to delete it? Are they just going to leave it out there forever? And again, make the appropriate designations and provide that information either as part of your official will or as just another document or a codicil to the will. It doesn't have to be, because it's not legally binding, but at least make sure it's with your will, if not part of it. Identify digital assets for sure. Make sure you've people know that you've got some cryptocurrency and what that password is, and that you've got these other different accounts. Make sure all your accounts are there. This should be included with usernames and passwords, because typically everything except maybe cryptocurrency, I don't do cryptocurrency. I'm not sure if you have it's in one of your accounts or not, but hopefully it's part of there. But you can, when you're doing the account designation, you probably want to separate it into categories. These are my financial accounts. So make sure you know about these. And then if you want to separate the others out into everything else or break them into categories, you can do that as well. And not to pitch password managers too much, but password managers let you do that as well. You can put things into categories. And finally, leave clear instructions regarding your wishes. What should be kept, what should be deleted. Do you want a memorial page, or do you want your Facebook account to be totally wiped off? What do you want to happen to your emails, your photos, your files, etc.? And then update your will with that information. There's something called a digital executor now that's starting to pop up, and that which is basically similar to your executor, but you may want to have a different person be your digital executor than the person that's your financial executor. You may have a son, a nephew, someone that's very technically astute that would be a better person to be your digital executor than the person that's doing your financial stuff. So give that some thought. You can split it apart. It doesn't have to be your executor. I think that, was the last point. So we got a few minutes left for other questions, comments, thoughts.
A couple years back, Wade, this is Joe.
Yeah, Joe.
A couple years back, I ran across something, and unfortunately, I can't find it now. And basically what it did was it was a message board that you could send messages to people that would go out after you died. If you liked them, if you didn't like them, if you thought they were evil or bad or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And it was kind of like a fail-safe thing. Once a month, they would send you a letter, and you had to respond to it, an email, and you had to respond. And if you didn't respond within a certain given time, they would send out your messages to the people that, you wanted to get the messages. But I'm sure it's still out there somewhere. I just haven't, I did write it down, but it's buried somewhere on my machine in a database, and I can't find it.
I know how that goes. Yes.
Yeah. Sounds
So,
familiar.
but there is that kind of thing out there. So you can maybe look for something like that if you're interested in it. But
yeah. Well, and I'm actually, and I thought it would be all part of this class. And as I started pulling this class together, it ended up being clearly more than I could cover in one class. So I am working on a follow-up to this class, which will get into more some of the how-tos, the sites. So going into Facebook to show you how to set up your wishes into other different places, and some of these third parties that will basically manage it for you, or they'll provide you tools to capture the information, spreadsheets, and then various attorneys' offices are starting to put together things. American Bar Association is starting to put out some information. So stay tuned. There'll be a follow-up to this class. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, but where we can get into some more about help to start doing some of this stuff. I think clearly the first step, and it's fairly straightforward, is getting your arms around anything that you log into, any of your accounts. But but things like that as well that are related. I've found several sites that actually do just do memoriams, where you can put a memorial site out for somebody, and it has links to other social media sites that they have and things like that. So it's kind of sad in some ways, but it's businesses are going to be springing up because there's a dollar to be made in this area. So I think there's going to be a lot of businesses around this 10 years from now.
I think the idea of a digital executor is interesting because, I mean, the person who would be my executor is very technical, tech savvy young person, relatively young, and certainly knows her way around as better than I do. But the more I look at it, the more I think it's a huge burden to put on someone in addition to the rest of even a small, tiny estate like mine would be. Just being executor of anything is always rather a burden. And adding all this stuff, I think, would be quite an imposition. So I think if it could be divided,
good point.
Not a family member, perhaps, but as mine would be. But it just seems like an awful lot to ask of someone because it just seems like pretty overwhelming the more I look at it.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because even if your current executor is technically able to do both, that's, it's a pretty big job. So just dividing the work between two people is probably a nice thing to do.
Mm.
Hey, Wade, this is Alma. I was also going to suggest that maybe in your next class, you also mention credit cards. And because, we access a lot of stuff, through the web for a credit card, and making sure that we, designate, getting those accounts closed out so that they don't get in the hands of someone who goes to town, on your, of course, you're not going to be around, but at the same time, you don't want your executor to have to be dealing with, well, no, there's no way that this person could have made that charge, because they were not around at that time that went through.
Yeah, well, in fact, that's something else that I read about that I didn't get into this class. It'd probably be in the next one. But one of the big problem areas is people stealing the identity of people that have passed on. And there's tens of thousands of occurrences of that happening, every year, probably more than that. But so that's one of the good reasons to shut everything down, because
you
getting into your
contact,
social accounts.
The Social Security, and let them know, so that no one should be establishing any more credit on that Social Security number.
Oh, definitely, that's required anyway.
Yeah, and then the other thing they say to do is in any type of obituary, do not put the month and year. Just say the person was born in whatever 1930 something, without giving the month and year, where they can then go back and look for the records to get.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, Wade, I got a great idea for you.
Okay.
Why don't you do a slide, physical graveyard versus digital graveyard? What do they have in common, and what they do not have in common? Because that's been running through my mind, a physical graveyard and a digital graveyard. And I've been trying to put the things together, but I can't do it.
Oh, I was gonna say, if you get a first cut of it, send it to me, and I'll run with it.
Well,
but yeah,
won't happen with me, Wade. I'm too lazy.
I'm going to jot that down, though. I like that idea.
Also, Wade, we don't really want to go there, but we have sometimes relatives or people that we know that are not necessarily above board and want to take advantage, especially, when the family is mourning, then they're kind of vulnerable.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah.
I think this class should be required of everybody. Because how many of us really, I just started thinking about it, but how many of us are even thinking about it? Or do you have a guess? How many people are over, say, 50-ish are thinking about their digital footprint after their digital afterlife? How many of us even think about wills at that age anyway?
Yeah, Google sent me an email about that and asked me to fill out a whole bunch of stuff, which I did.
Really?
Yeah, I think it is just starting to come up, and I had never thought about it. So actually the way this course came about is our CEO saw a podcast on this topic and said, wow, this is a really important topic. And he asked me to pull together a class on it. So I can't take credit for having thought of it, but then he just happened to be listening to a podcast, and that was the topic of the podcast. So that's the legacy of the course, but I'm glad he did. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and move into the closing because there's a few things here I want to talk about and make sure we cover, and also get you out here in time to get to your next class. But and I'll make an apology here because originally I thought this would be one class, and so we put it out there, and after I got into it deeply, it was clear this is at least 2 classes, maybe more. So we're going to split this into 2 classes. And so there'll be one, which is Digital Afterlife, what it is and why you should care, which is going to be a lot of what we covered today. In fact, reality, you just took this class. And then managing your digital afterlife is going to be going into how do you go into Facebook and change it? How do you go into Instagram and change it? How do you find a digital executor? And what are the different tools out there to use to kind of start doing the things we talked about in the first class? So the next time this class is offered, it's going to be a different class. It'll be that how-to class. And so I apologize for those of you pioneers that the names are going to kind of change on you. So really, you just took this class, and the next class is going to be the same one you took again. So you'll need to sign up for the same name again the next time it's offered. It will be a different class. And of course, the password manager class is one way to deal with organizing and passing on your usernames and passwords and cataloging all of your accounts as one way. All right, so, and quickly, because you're all veterans here today, I think we've been through this before. So there'll be email coming out after class. They'll have class notes. On this one, I will have a number of attachments that go into this a little deeper, talks about digital assets, and there's some things from the American Bar Association I'm going to include, kind of goes at it from the legal side a little bit more. It's a big topic. I think I only have 3 links. I'm not going to swamp you, but a few things there if you're interested.
An issue with the title. If we want to replay, are we asking for managing? Or
Yes.
are we?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is the class you took. So it'll change after this class is over. So yeah, if you're getting a copy of the recording, ask for Managing Your Digital Afterlife. Okay. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that, Carolyn. As usual, you can recommend the class to a friend, and the Give Feedback link opens our feedback page form where you can provide feedback. And then the view schedule link will take you to our website where you can book another class. Again, helpitgetsetup.io is the email. That's pretty much your one-stop shopping for any communication with Get Set Up, questions, comments, complaints. That's what you use to get a copy of the recording. So if you do want to listen to this one again, just send an email to helpitgetsetup.io and request a copy of Managing Your Digital Afterlife. It's the same email you would use if you'd like to host an interest group. This would probably be a great interest group to set up and where people can come and talk about it, because it's going to be changing frequently. So anyone that'd like to host an interest group around Managing Your Digital Afterlife, or just be part of that group, maybe you don't want to host it, but you want to be part of it, let us know. If there's a new class you'd like to see us offer, or if you belong to an organization that you think would be a good partner for us, let us know as well. helpitgetsetup.io. Okay, so we are at the end of the hour. I do want to thank you all for attending, and thanks for a great discussion and lots of great ideas. Hope I'll see you again in another class real soon, and hope you have a wonderful afternoon and a great weekend.
Take care, Wade. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Wade.
Bye-bye.
Good first effort on
Now,
this.
Pepper, hi.
Okay.
I forget, is your name Elsa?
Elsa Marie.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Carolyn. Bye-bye.
Bye.